Welcome in to Inside Carolina's Next Level, where Greg Barnes and I go through things a little deeper than the normal North Carolina coverage of sports, football, and basketball. And today we have a special guest, and I'll give it to Greg to introduce Coach Matson. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, Tommy, I tell you, if we'd have had this conversation 3 months ago, we'd be talking about the most decorated field hockey player in North Carolina history, uh, arguably the best field hockey player in NCAA history, and certainly an individual in the conversation as one of the best athletes in North Carolina history, which is saying a lot. And we can still have that conversation. However, we're here today because, uh, as Tommy said, Erin Matson is now head coach, Erin Matson of the field hockey program. Erin, thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. I know like we were talking about before we got on air here, it doesn't sound real, but I'm glad it is.
So let's kind of move back a little bit in time. Obviously, the team won yet another national championship a couple months ago, and then Karen Shelton, 42-year long head coach of the field hockey program, 10 national championships, which is just mind boggling, decides to step down. And then January 31st, you were announced as the next head coach. At what point over the past, I don't know, 6 months, did it become something in the back of your mind that, hey, whenever Coach Shelton decides to step down, this is something I would be interested in and jumping straight into the coaching ranks?
Yeah, it definitely went from that's funny, maybe a possibility, haha, to wait, this might be a possibility very quickly. Um, Obviously there were more important things at hand with the national championship and graduation and team culture, everything going on, that was much more important at the time being. So um, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't in the back of my mind sometimes, but obviously tried my best and our best and everything to keep it very professional, compartmentalized. No one needed that at the time, including me. So it was there, but like I said, there were way more important things going on and way more important conversations that were being had. But yeah, once it was announced and the application opened up, um, it was very much just hitting the ground running and seeing where this is going to go.
Were there conversations with Coach Shelton kind of along the way of, hey, this is kind of where I would like to get to eventually? And she kind of helped pave the path, if you will?
Not necessarily. Again, I think it was more like, I don't know if elephant in the room is the right kind of description, but just that unsaid. Neither of us wanted to talk about it. No one in the field hockey world, the rumor mill goes nuts anywhere, but the field hockey community is no different. And of course, there was this getting thrown out and this getting thrown out and everything. Um, and all we had to do was just stay focused on one game at a time on the season. It made our lives easier that the season was going well. So if there ever was rumblings and stuff like that, it was like, hey, you will be playing next Friday. Get your mind off of it. But yeah, again, same thing. Like I'm not gonna sit here and tell you people weren't chatting about it. But it definitely was done professionally with the people involved who, like, myself, not allowing it to bleed into performance or um, locker room talk, anything like that at all. And coach was the same way, because again, there were much bigger fish to fry at the time. And then once the natty was won and everything was taken care of and the gown was put on and the cap was thrown at graduation, different story. Let's have all the conversations we want. But yeah, no, everyone kind of just knew it, but didn't talk about it.
It is a fascinating scenario. You're 22 years old. Coach Shelton, 23 at the time when she was hired back in the early 80s. So the symbiotic thing is going on there. Five-time ACC champion, only person ever to do that. Thank you, COVID year,
Yeah,
for that.
exactly.
Four-time NCAA champion, same thing. But one thing Coach Shelton always said about you is how coachable you were and how much of a leader you were, really from day one. Maybe a little rambunctious early coming in, but certainly lived up to it play wise. And now you go into a coach role, and I know you're 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in, or whatever. I sort of liken it to us real world folks, and I say real world because sports is just separated. You go from being a supervisor or being a coworker to a supervisor.
Yeah.
What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, it's definitely it's different, right? And when I first met with the team and everyone, and even staff, everyone involved when it happened, I was not going to sit there and tell them how to feel, tell them that this is totally normal, because it's not. And I understand that. And I think that's what's been really special here with the team and the coaching staff, everyone, support staff, everyone involved in Carolina. We did this. This is how it is. Everyone is either on board or bought into, like, this is different. Let's jump into it together and see what it's like, see what we can do. There's been, a lot of transparency and just creating that stable, secure environment on my end to make sure that conversations like, what do these new boundaries look like, and what is this new relationship going to look like with Erin, and stuff like that, that it's a very comfortable environment to navigate those conversations and situations. But yeah, it's different and unique. I joked with the team. I was like, let's not make this weird, right? It's different, but we can do it. And I don't think there's any other team or program, or let alone school in the country that could really do it. It's a very unique situation, but we're also, Chapel Hill is one of a kind as well, and so is UNC Field Hockey. So, it's been great, but there's going to be hurdles. There's going to be situations to be like, is this how we work it? Maybe it would work this better. This isn't acceptable. This is now, all of those different things. But I think just the team and the staff, again, as everyone has been really supportive with putting it out there, accepting it, and let's go through it together.
How do you think your success makes that easier for you to say, this is how we're going to do it? Even if it's different from Coach Shelton, this is how we're going to do it. I've done it this way. Look at me. I mean, we've had some success. How do you plan to use your personal success to help lead the program, lead these young ladies, not only the current team that you've played with for so long, but recruits when they come in?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's obvious that Carolina and I have worked well together, right? So, again, it's not like I'm preaching lies or saying stuff that isn't true. And it's like the Carolina way works, and it's worked for me. It works for you too. So that necessarily is simpler and easy in a sense. But also, like you said, we have a winning way. I've been successful with my standards and expectations, and the girls understand those because they've been the same for 5 years. So I'm not introducing myself and talking about what I expect, and they understand already. And whether those expectations are from myself as a player viewpoint and what they need to think about themselves, and just when it comes to keeping the locker room clean, let's be organized with communication, like little things to big things. They know how I roll, and same with the staff. Obviously, this is a different level and a different role with that, but same thing. Like, UNC Field Hockey knows me, and I know UNC Field Hockey. So I know what works. I know what can be enhanced a little bit, tweaked, some new things that we can do that I can have impact on, that the team and the staff and everyone values. And we've worked very hard to create that culture of family and support and transparency and stuff. So that makes my job easier for already having a base there. But yeah, I mean, the girls have a lot of trust in me. They've trusted in me for years. And I think it's amplified because they know how much I trust them, and likewise with the staff. So yeah, it's not like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just what are the next steps that we can do to raise the bar that much more.
Erin, people hear that you're 22 and say, wait a minute, how does she have enough experience to be able to do this? And I think people around the program and around Chapel Hill who understand what you've brought to the program and what you've done, I think when they heard that, we're like, well, if anybody's going to be able to do it, it's going to be Erin. But the fact that you were playing international ball, what, at 13?
Yeah, that was the first tour.
So when you're at that age and you're playing with people twice your age and older, how beneficial has that been in terms of helping you kind of grow and mature quicker? Because as Tommy, you mentioned off air, we've listened to a lot of interviews you've done and kind of watched you from afar for a number of years, and you've always been incredibly well polished, very well spoken. You seem much older than your age. So,
Mhm.
does that international experience and just you being at such a high level so early, has that really benefited you and allowed you to kind of move and progress a little bit quicker?
Definitely. Yeah, you guys have heard it. I've said it. I've played up age groups my entire life. Like you said, I've been surrounded by older women, successful coaches, who have a lot of experience. Um, and that was funny too. In like my transition where I used to always be the baby of teams and wait, now I'm a fifth year senior captain, and figuring out how everything that I've learned and experienced led up to then. Obviously now this is like taking that to the next 10th level, with looking back and seeing how all of those experiences and graduating high school early and being 17 on the national team when my teammates were thinking about having kids, like all of those things, learning time management skills, how to travel across the world alone, simple things like making sure I'm getting enough and the right nutrition, all of that stuff, learning it from older experienced players, leads up to here. And I think, that's another piece of the puzzle and why this is able to work. Um, so yeah, I definitely, think it all plays a factor in how I'm here, which is crazy because that's the saying, you go through life and one day you realize where everything kind of clicks and it's like, oh, that happened because of this and now I'm here because of that. Which has really been eye-opening with this whole experience, because yes, definitely I've been in unique scenarios my whole life, and a lot of them I'm using and tapping back into now.
Aaron, one question I got from a good friend of mine who follows a lot of Olympic sports in Carolina said, "Is she still going to be able to play international? Are you staying in shape?
I know.
Is that something
Like,
on the agenda?"
yeah, I mean, I ran with the girls yesterday, which was fun, but I won't lie to you, that was the first time I ran in like 3 weeks because I haven't had time. But um, we're working on that. We're working on that. With the $1 million question of if I'm still playing right now, I obviously had to think about this going through the interview process because, again, you're not the first person to think of this or ask it, and neither is your friend. Um, but right now, my energy, the team and the program deserve it. The staff, that's where my energy needs to go. Two, I feel like it's my purpose now to do this, and that might sound cheesy or corny or whatever, but this is how, I feel like I can stay involved with the sport and give back across the country, hopefully for years and decades and everything. But um, it makes my decision necessarily easier, to step away, at least for the time being, because I know that this is now my way to give back. Rather than, suiting up and being out there. I definitely am not closing the door, and that's Bubba and I have talked about it, um, for the foreseeable future. I want to put my energy here, and Carolina needs it, but someday down the road, if it works out where I can slip away for a casual Olympics, great. But we will see, if that's even a possibility. But right now, Carolina has my heart, and I want to put all of my energy into it.
Casual Olympics. Greg, we're definitely on the next level here talking to Coach Matson, UNC field hockey. Erin, a question I had, and it comes based off listening to the Carolina Stories podcast you did with Stephen Bayfier
Mhm.
back in April, I guess right when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Um, talked about coaching younger players, and this was a fascinating discussion. And I guess you at the time, you're 20 years old, having this discussion with him. You talked about the importance of understanding how players want to be coached.
Mhm.
Um, your personality is you can take a coach that's tough and coming at you and all that. All players, especially this day and age, can't.
Right.
What is that challenge for you? And everybody's referred to Michael Jordan and all that about how he was a great player, he was fiery and all, but not really the best coach in the
Yeah.
world because that style doesn't work.
Mhm.
What have you thought about that, especially over the last 3 weeks when you've been the head coach? Is what is my style going to be? How am I going to have time to be individualized with every player? or will it just be a process for you, sort of learning and going as you go?
Yeah. I'm definitely someone, coach, player, whoever, Erin is someone who thrives off of relationships and connections. I love understanding things, especially how people work. And then that allows me, because I'm a helper and I like problem solving and helping situations and people, that allows me, by building that connection, to then, you know, create a plan in order to help, if that makes sense. So when it comes to, yes, understanding a teammate or a player who, like you said, could handle being yelled at, let's go, get it together, great. But 2 lines down on the field, there's a player who needs more positive encouragement and reinforcement and stuff like that. And then, maybe the player 50 yards away doesn't even want you to talk to him until you get in the locker room and your shin pads are off and, the day's done. So I think it's super important, like I said back then, and it's helped me with my leadership as a captain and stuff. But understanding what people respond well to, and sometimes they don't even know yet, and it's all about that journey to figure out what that is. So that'll be no different as a coach, and we've already had opportunities to do that. Going back to like previously what we talked about, I know these girls, so it's not like I really need to figure out how to do that totally, because I played with them just on the player side and I knew how to communicate with them then. So it's just changing that into coaching and doing it from the sidelines. But that'll be the same, like you're saying, individualizing, figuring out situation based and personnel based, how people respond best and what they need to thrive. And of course, yes, I'm someone who naturally defaults to the intense, I don't understand why you're not understanding what I'm saying type thing. But over the years, and of course, as a freshman going to a fifth year senior and now coach, my eyes have opened in that sense. Totally. I also think understanding how to communicate in a sense, um, when it comes to like skill-based stuff or things that are more tangible and everything, it helps, one, that I know what they want to hear and where their mind's at, because I literally was in their shoes 3 months ago. But 2, I think it's important to be able to understand a drill or understand how to do something in a way that's absorbed by that person. So certain players need to see it, certain players need to do it, certain players need to hear about it, understand the why, and do it. It's all different. So again, being able to understand or being able to explain a drill or tactical situation, anything like that, so that the person listening can absorb it, understand, and apply, rather than just, okay, that makes 0 sense.
Talk about your the challenge of recruiting. I mean, Coach Shelton, obviously great at it, 42 years of experience, uh, won on every level, won many games at North Carolina. What does the recruiting pitch under Coach Matson look like?
Oh, you want me to pitch it to you?
Yeah, let's go.
No, well, I mean,
Greg's got a young daughter.
all right.
There we go.
She's high level. Say she's high level field hockey. What are we saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, I know X's and O's better than anyone in the country. So I know how to coach to win. I know what that takes at Carolina. Secondly, I have the best relationship with girls in the recruiting class in that age group um, across the country. I told Bubba before I was hired, if you tell me right now to reach out to a girl and influence, talk about how Carolina is great, talk about how this school might be the right fit, they're going to listen to me. I have a connection with that age group. I also understand Carolina and what it takes to be a student athlete here, right? I don't need to be sat down and introduced to what is Connect Carolina, what is Sakai, all this stuff. I did it. And I did it well. And then finally, I'm young, but I get it. I have a connection to the recruiting class. I have a connection to the current student body, and I've worked to build relationships with alums and the older generation who know I just love Carolina like you guys do more than anything. So I'm young. I know I have to ask questions, but I'm good at asking them. So give me the job. Boom.
That's perfect. Erin, I've got one more for you. We need to get you out of here. But I would be remiss if I don't ask this. We've got one of the greatest athletes in North Carolina sports history with us. So everybody watching who is maybe young in athletics or is a parent or a grandparent, looking back on your successes as a player, what are kind of maybe the one or two most important things that allowed you to get to the point where you were at the top of the mountain in
Sure.
terms of work ethic or whatever that may be?
Yeah, definitely. The first couple few things that come to mind, one, I was very fortunate in support, so it's not necessarily always something you can ask for, but and some are more fortunate than others, but um, I always had, my family to lean on. I had amazing coaches to learn from and who supported me. I had teammates, so I definitely would not be here if it weren't for my family, certain coaches, relationships that I've built over the years. Um, I love the game. So I think, you can't take that away from it either. There needs to be that undeniable passion. Because otherwise, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not going to work as hard. You're not going to put as much time aside. So you need to, your heart needs to be in it. Um, Also, field hockey wise, it's not a secret at all, but I found so much excitement and joy in the fundamentals and the basics and boring stuff. Where I think if you can master that, you can do anything. But especially in today's day and age, we want to get to the exciting stuff and get ahead and, quick response to everything. And it's like, wait, let's slow down, become a master at the mundane stuff, and then you can get to the exciting stuff. But you can't skip that step. Um, and then of course, yeah, I mean, again, this is the $1 million question too for coaches, is how can you get that killer instinct, never satisfied, animal mentality? How can you teach that? And can you even teach that? But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I have more chances to win more trophies, hopefully, because 4 is not enough, and you can always win more. So I think just yeah, the fact that I you know never wanted to just be complacent and coast and everything. There's always the next win, and then that one sets you up for the next one. So being never satisfied definitely helped a little bit.
Never satisfied. That is Erin Matson, brand new North Carolina field hockey coach, of course, legendary field hockey player at the university and internationally. Erin, really appreciate you joining Greg and I here on Next Level.
No, of course, this was great. I appreciate you too.
Yep, hopefully we can talk again as we get deeper into Coach Matson tenure. We'll come back and revisit. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Greg, you have one of the best to do it. And I thought that the last thing she talked about is that killer instinct. It's one of those things that you can't teach, you have to have. It's one reason why when I hear the NBA discussion of the GOAT and all that that's been going on a lot lately, that Michael Jordan remains at the top for me. But Coach Matson versus player Matson, it's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch given what I mentioned, and I like her answer on it, is you go from coworker to supervisor, and it doesn't matter how many friends you have, how many people are you cool with. Once you're telling them what to do, the dynamic changes. Sounds to me like she's got her head on her shoulders in the right way there.
I don't think there's any question about it. And just listening to her today, and in just previous conversations that we've heard via podcasts or videos or whatever, she's very well put together, and she has a very good understanding. I think the fact that she really kind of worked as a player coach past year or two really kind of speaks to the leadership that she brings. She has the drive. You brought it up earlier, but Karen Shelton's only 65, and she had coached at Carolina for 42 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of similarity there, and I think if you have that work ethic and you have that drive, which she does, uh, yeah, I think it's one of those things. Is it risky? Yeah, I mean, sure, of course it is. But why not go with one of the best field hockey players of all time? That is a Carolina uh, graduate, loves Carolina, has had so much success here. It fits. And if you're ever going to roll the dice, I think this is a perfect opportunity. I'm sure Coach Shelton will be around if she ever needs a helping hand in any way or shape or form. She's got a good coaching staff that's been around, so there's a pretty seamless transition there. And I think it's an exciting step. You got to give Bubba Cunningham a lot of credit. And Bubba has been in Chapel Hill for, I guess, 12 years now.
Mhm.
And he's not one to take risks. That's just kind of not what he does. He likes to be a little bit bold and progressive, but not you kind of be out of control in some of the risks that he takes. And I think it's just a very smart play. I think it's very interesting. It brings a lot of good attention to the North Carolina field hockey program. Everybody knows how successful that program has been, right? It's women's soccer under Anson, and it's field hockey with Karen Shelton have really put the Olympic sports at Carolina on the map. And so when you have this type of transition, it just makes sense. And I think North Carolina continues to be in good hands in that regard.
It is interesting, they talk about the Carolina family. This is a prime example of it, and
Sure.
talking about the who to be the coach for this team is, I mean, they interviewed other standing coaches out there, but how do you bring in somebody? And this is one thing, the Sports Illustrated article that dropped, I guess, on Monday, I guess it was, is or Tuesday, is they had their Michael Jordan right there. Why risk losing her either internationally or whatever? And there's no better person that understands what Carolina is about. That's why on the recruiting question I ask is, tell us what your pitch is, because you know it as well as I do. Um, Carolina's different than just about anywhere else, at least for the folks that are in it. And to hear her explain that and go through it, I think it makes total sense as well. And is it risky? I don't know what the risk is, to be honest, because Bubba mentioned he hired Mac Brown, who was almost 70 at the time, and now he's hired somebody that's barely in their 20s. So a fantastic dynamic there. And I don't think either one of those hires was risky given the nature of the circumstances. I think she'll be fine. My question is, and this is why I asked it a couple times, and I want your take, is if I'm the best at what I've ever done and I'm coaching somebody and I'm trying to get them to do it that way, and she mentioned this, I don't know if I'm gonna be very patient with somebody that's just not getting it. That's gonna be the dynamic. That's the Michael Jordan trying to be a manager or whatever dynamic there. That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I think her age probably helps with that.
Mhm.
She's not a grizzly veteran, right? And she's friends with a lot of the players that are currently on the team. She understands who they are personally. She understands what makes them tick, and I think that will really help, and that will really kind of provide a nice transition. I think that's one of the interesting things is, and you hit on it, but 5 years down the road, there's not going to be any boundary issues in terms of coach or player, right? She'll
Mhm.
be entrenched. She will be Coach Matson, and then you have all the players will know her as such. But for right now, for the next couple of years, while she's coaching people that she played with, that's going to be kind of the learning period. And I think just the way that the way she's answered some questions for us, the way she's answered questions for other people, she's aware of that. She understands there's a transition here. She knows what she wants to do, but she's willing to kind of work through those challenges. And I think that's how you got to be. And in terms of the risky part, I do want to make this clear. Bubba Cunningham, from day one, I mean, this dates back to when he hired Larry Fedora in November of 2011. But from day one, Bubba has said, I'm going to start a search looking for somebody that has head coaching experience. And most of the time, that checks the boxes. Hubert Davis, of course, had not been a head coach, but all of the other aspects, including the Carolina family and the experience and the support, that all played a role in saying, okay, well, Hubert's the guy for the job. And I think Erin's very much in the same boat of they interviewed head coaches. And
Mhm.
yet Erin comes into the interview and she performs so well in the interview, they're like, well, yeah, they may have more experience as a head coach, but she has all these other benefits that she can really help. And 5 years down the road, I mean, who's to say she can't be the best head coach in the country? She's the best player. Why doesn't that trend continue? And so, yeah, I think risky from the outside, maybe more so than within the Chapel Hill community. Because as I said when Erin was here, uh, Justin talking with people around the program and in Chapel Hill, I don't know anybody that was like, "Ooh, I don't think that's the right idea." Everybody's like, "All right, that's interesting. I think it'll work." And so I think there's going to be a lot of support for her as she starts this process.
I agree. It's going to be fun to watch and to see how it works. I mean, North Carolina field hockey is the standard. They got that 10th national championship. I think Old Dominion's second with 9, maybe. But you know, you've got the best player ever coaching probably the best program ever, taking over from somebody that had been there, to your point, 42 years. And she's only mid 60s now. So you're right. She'll be around. There's always that shoulder to lean on. But I don't know if Coach Matson's going to need too many shoulders to
Yep.
lean on. She knows what she wants, and she's certainly done it. Um, we'll see if it translates. I think it probably will. That's Greg Barnes. I'm Tommy Ashley. It's been Inside Carolina's Next Level. Support Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Subscribe to the Inside Carolina YouTube channel as always, and get the Inside Carolina and the premium message boards. Check us out. Check out all the conversations. Got a show idea? Hit me up. Hit Greg up. We'll do what we can. We got a lot more to discuss over the years doing this show. But Greg, that'll be the last of this one. Thanks, buddy.